So here I am in the hospital ICU, unresponsive, unable to breathe, both lungs damaged beyond repair at this point. Um, but an extraordinary miracle happened, which I didn't realize happened because it was so real. I literally got up. I sat at the edge of my bed in the hospital ICU. And I got up and I looked and I was fully awake. I was fully conscious and I realized where I was. And I proceeded to look around. But here's the thing, even though I was fully awake, fully aware, fully present, I looked over to my right and what I saw was my actual physical body laying on the bed that I was sitting on.
Hello, welcome to the Light the Day podcast where we explore spiritually transformative experiences. Today I have on the show Leena Zafary. Hi, Leena. It's so good to have you here.
Hi, Julie. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I am thrilled. I remember meeting you early last year, I think it was, and it was such a beautiful experience to meet you. I met you through IONS. I've talked about IONS before, the International International, okay, I didn't even say it right. International Association of Near-Death Studies.
You got it.
Yeah. So, and you're a host of at least one of their sharing groups I know of, and so tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll talk about your story because it's amazing.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, I do actually. I want to share, and I think I've said this to you before, but I want to share it here that the first time I met you, I had a heart explosion full of energy. When you shared, I don't really remember the extent of what you shared, but the energy that you shared with, it was so beautiful. It was so moving to me. And, every interaction I've had with you afterwards has just confirmed those feelings and that the energy that you exude. So I just want to acknowledge that.
Oh, thank you, Lena. And as I mentioned to you before we got on, I'm like, I felt the same way about you. And so you were on the top of my list of someone I wanted to have on the show. I wanted to learn more about you and your experiences because obviously there's a lot of love and depth there in you. And so I was super excited when you said yes, that you would come on the show. So thank you so much. That means a lot.
Thank you. I'm honored. So I can just start sharing a little bit about myself. So currently, I am very much involved with IANS, as you mentioned. I am a facilitator and moderator for the sharing groups, which we do on a weekly basis. And I'm also the founder and leader of the IANS Las Vegas chapter here in Las Vegas, because that's where I'm from. So yeah, IANS is a big part of my life. So what happened was that got me into it was a near-death experience. So before I share my near-death experience, maybe a little bit of information about me, about like who I was, to
Yeah,
kind of
definitely.
set the stage for my near-death experience and make sense of it. Um, but prior to my near-death experience, which happened in 2014 in January, prior to that, I lived like a regular normal life. I was married, happily married, and I had two beautiful children who I was in love with because I thought I couldn't have kids. So when you think you can't have kids, and then when you have them, there's this extra sense of, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but I was in that bubble. So very loved and consumed with my kids. And in January, um, I went from being a very healthy person. I was, gosh, my late 30s, early 40s. So this was about 11 years ago. So I was happy, healthy. And then I got sick. And I got sick by a normal cold, flu,
Mm.
which escalated really, really fast. And it got me to a point to where I found myself unable to breathe. And that wasn't normal for me. I've always been, you know, very much of a holistic person. I was healthy, but I didn't have any beliefs about, anything. Like I wasn't a meditator or a spiritual person or anything. But in those days, when I got sick, I went to the hospital just to get checked out. And one thing led to another. They kept me, and my health just deteriorated. Within a matter of about 9 days, I was laying in the hospital in the ICU. So the virus that was going around back in 2014 January was the H1N1 virus. I think it was also the bird flu or swine flu, very similar to COVID. It attacked the respiratory system, and apparently that's what I had contracted. And I found that out later. But with that, it came with both of my lungs pretty much failing on me, and I was not responding to treatments in the ICU. So I was on a breathing, whatever you want to call it. So I was not coherent. I was pretty much not in coma, but I'm assuming not not fully awake. But I do recall waking up in the hospital and wanting to go home. Like the
Oh,
only thing I remember in the 9 days I was in the hospital was the sense of needing to go home. I needed to go home because my daughter was nursing at the time. She was 18 months old, and my little
oh,
was about to turn 5. So I knew I had uh, a birthday coming up. My son was turning 5. His birthday is January 13th. So all this is happening in the week prior to his birthday.
mm,
So here I am in the hospital ICU, unresponsive, unable to breathe, both lungs damaged beyond repair at this point. But an extraordinary miracle happened, which I didn't realize happened because it was so real. Julie,
mm,
I didn't, this happened as if this conversation between you and I is happening right now. It's exactly how real this happened. I literally got up. I sat at the edge of my bed in the hospital ICU. And I got up and I looked and I was fully awake. I was fully conscious and I realized where I was. And I proceeded to look around. But here's the thing, even though I was fully awake, fully aware, fully present, I looked over to my right, and what I saw was my actual physical body laying on the bed that I was sitting on. So,
did you recognize that was your physical body on the bed? You did. And
and
how did you feel? Were you scared or were you just totally at peace?
it's like, this is my cup. That's
Wow.
me. It was just as they was that. There was nothing else to it. It was just I recognized and realized that my body was there.
Mm,
Now, interestingly, I'm looking at my body to my right. I'm also aware of 4 people kind of around my body, 2 on each side of the bed. I don't see who it is. Like I don't see faces, but I do see kind of like figures. And I assumed they were like my doctors and nurses because they wore this element of like a white coat, but I don't think I looked long enough or close enough. It was just like this silhouettes of white, you know, standing over me on both sides. And it was just as like, oh, they're taking care of me.
mm,
So that was the extent of that whole thing. But it happens in a flash. But every time you go back and you're like, yeah, and then I saw, this and that. So as that's happening, my attention is brought back to the room on this side because all of a sudden now I hear this voice coming from like, I want to say I'm hearing it from like this angle to above to my right. I'm hearing a voice, and it's a very audible, clear, strong woman's voice, female voice. And it says, Leena, you have to go back, but you have to make the decision. You got to go back. And I'm like, okay. And I'm not really thinking anything. I'm just still kind of looking around and observing. And as I look over to my left, and I notice that I finally get to see my two kids. I've been asking for my kids for the past 9 days, and I finally get to see them. So as I look at them sitting there, I am just flushed with joy. I mean, just beaming with light.
So where were your kids there in the room with you, or you just okay, okay. Yeah.
They're not, they were home. They
Okay.
never brought my kids to the hospital because um I was in the ICU and I was
Yeah.
not responsive. So they didn't want to traumatize the kids.
Right, that
So
makes sense.
their own trauma, 9 days, I just disappeared on them. My 18-month-old, my daughter cried every single day. There's nothing nobody can do to soothe her because I was missing, and that's a big moment when a child is nursing,
Yeah.
with the mom. So there was all that energy back and forth. So, but in my experience, they were right there. They were
Mm,
just right there. And I was just happy. Like I don't know how else to describe it. I saw my kids after 9 days and I was beaming with joy and I was just happy. And in that happiness, I'm also hearing that voice again that's saying, Leena, you got to hurry up and make a decision. Kind of like telling me to hurry up and that only I can make that decision. And it's very interesting because those words, there's no other words in my near-death experience except those words about me going back and me needing to make a decision. And it's very interesting because afterwards, that word has played a huge role in my life about decisions. Um,
mhm,
but apparently when I saw my kids, I guess the energy in me shifted to such high frequency is the words that I know to use now, not then, but the frequency of my energy was so high, it was bright light,
mhm,
luminous. And that's what I was feeling and sensing. Which in that moment, it almost like I can look beyond the room that I was in. And as I looked up on my left, I can look past beyond the room. And now what I'm looking at is this beautiful black sky, right? Where you
mm,
can see the stars and the lights. It was like that. So I can look into the darkness, but I could still see in there. And what I'm seeing is silhouettes, shadows of just people sitting there in rows,
mm.
all facing me. And I don't hear anything, but I know and I feel that they're praying for me.
Wow.
And I know, and there's one more distinction that really is important is that I know that there are people from here that are still alive, not people who's on spirit form. Like I'm not meeting anybody in the spirit realm of any sort. What I'm witnessing is humans that are still here on earth, but their souls, because they're in prayer, they are lit up for me to see. And this this is the understanding that I'm catching from all this, right? Because I've
Wow.
shared the story so many times, as in what happened, but what is it? The depths of it is that as I look out and I'm like, I can feel the love and the prayers from these people. So I naturally want to know who it is. So as I look, as I'm like the way I'm looking at you, my attention and my gaze on you, this literally lifts them up from the distance because they're in shadow because they're so far away, and it brings them up closer to me, right? But as they come closer, I don't see them. I just see them, but they become the light of a candle. I was going to have a candle lit and I forgot. But the light of a candle, you light a candle and you see the little flame. Everybody that came up turned into the flame and light of a candle. So I was like, huh. So I looked at several people in that sense because, it's like I was like, oh, okay, that's what happens when I look, they come up and so I did that. And then it was almost like the socket gets pulled and the TV goes black, your computer screen, everything ended.
Mm.
My At that moment, everything just stopped. And then the next memory I have is about a day later when I'm getting ready to go home. So now that's what happened in my NDE. Now coming out, it took me another 4 years to realize what happened. So now I'm going to kind of go back and tell you what happened from outside. I told you what happened from my perspective in my
Yes.
NDE, but now what was happening in the ICU while I was experiencing that was the ICU doctors had come out and informed my father and my then husband and family that they had done everything they could and I was being unresponsive, and they were not able to get my lungs to come back to functioning because they deteriorated so much. And I'm not a medical expert doctor or anything, but I know that with lungs, it's they
It's
require.
crucial. It's
Yeah.
crucial.
But here's what happened. I went from both lungs completely gone and them unable to resuscitate me and fix me. And they had told my family to come and say goodbyes. That's the prognosis of my situation at the time, outside of what I was experiencing.
Hmm.
So while I was having that experience, I don't know what happened here in the physical world because I apparently woke up healed. I woke up completely healed, Julie.
Wow.
No lung issues. I, I, and I have no memory of waking up. I have no memory of coming back into my body. I don't have a memory of opening my eyes and see who was there. I don't have a memory of any part of it. In fact, after I woke up, um, I apparently was hungry and I had asked for food. And to this day, I don't remember it, but my ex-husband at the time had taken a photo of me eating a burger in the hospital on that day, which makes no sense. Um,
Wow.
yes, so it's been very interesting trying to put the puzzle pieces together because before my NDE, I had absolute zero. I was not in the spiritual world. I grew up. I grew up in a Muslim family, so I grew up in the Islamic faith, and in Islam, really, there's no room for spirituality or anything else because we got them pillars. And,
Mm.
we've got, there's set things in Islam. So there's really no room for NDEs, STEs, and there's no conversation, dialogue. At least in my world, there was none. In my life experience, I was never exposed to anything. So when my NDE happened, and I had no idea because I didn't come in and I didn't know for another 4 years what happened to me. But it was through the changes and the portal that was left open for me. I had some incredible experiences, like an STE that happened, like spiritually transformative experience, that was so profound that left me like vibrating
Wow.
physically, like, and from that, from after that experience, it was just like the universe just unleashed everything I needed to know and everything I needed to learn to understand what happened to me, where I went, what it means to be here and to embody that and the responsibility and all of that. So
Wow.
it's been 11 years, but it's taken 11 years to come to this point in this moment.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So let's go back to 11 years ago for just a minute because I have a couple questions. So the picture that was taken of you eating a hamburger was the day of your NDE, or was that next day when you remember leaving the hospital?
So I have no idea what day it happened or what time,
Okay,
because
because you don't have any memory of that. That's very disorienting to have like some, a picture or you're somebody saying, well, you sat up and said this to me and having no memory of it is like is very very odd feeling, isn't it?
absolutely. And as you know, this whole, I'm a big into synchronicities and the universal laws and the universal truths and the universal energy. And you know that the numerology, and the number 11 is a very sacred number for me. It has been for many, many years. And for many, many years, I've been seeing 11, 11, 111, and in many different formations all my life. And I have probably over 1,000 pictures of 1111 that's popped up that I've taken, only that I documented, like screenshot, because I was like, but
That
it
happened to me today, so I get
happens
it.
to me on a daily basis.
Yeah, yeah.
Guess what I discovered this year?
What's that?
I discovered the day my NDE happened. It happened in January 11.
Oh,
Yeah. The reason why I know that is because I have hospital discharge letters for January 12th. My son's birthday is January 13th. I made it home one day before my son's birthday, 5th birthday.
wow.
But I went from being in a state of, on the 11th, being in a state of comatose. I couldn't breathe. I was laying in the ICU for 5 days. My lungs deteriorating by the minute. And this virus was attacking me. And literally on 111, God gave me new life, new breath, and like new experience. And I literally sat up and I went home the next day. No
Wow.
explanation,
So what did the doctor say?
nothing.
Nothing.
I have no memory of conversations. They didn't tell me nothing. They discharged me on 112. I have discharge prescription from hospital with the discharge letters, and it says January 12th, my name, and no medications, no treatments. There's a picture of me eating. There's a picture of me talking. There's a picture of me walking. There's a picture of me getting home and hugging my baby girl for the first time. Um, and nobody told me what happened to me. So when I got home, I was weak, and I didn't know I knew I was coming home and I knew I was weak, but I had no clue what happened. I was just happy to be home, and all I did was just lay around and rest with my kids, and my family pretty much created that bubble for me. I just, for like the first couple months, I stayed home, and they just took care of me around me, and just made sure I didn't get sick. And they told me that I just needed to be careful because my lungs were sensitive, because I was in the hospital. But that's all they told me. I had no idea the severity of my case.
Wow.
Clue.
So it almost sounds like you were so because your physical condition was so severe that you didn't even have consciousness around what you were experiencing while you were sick. Because as you were sharing, like how your lungs were damaged and you couldn't breathe, and I'm just thinking that must be so frightening. But for you, it was like I just wasn't there. I just wasn't even aware. So all this was happening to you physically, but not consciously.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah.
Wow.
And what I chalked it up to was because I was in such bad condition breathing wise, that they had these really strong things on my face breathing for me. So I wasn't breathing, it was breathing for me. And I had the leg pumps pumping
Oh,
my
uh-huh.
leg muscles to circulate the blood into my heart, I guess. That's the condition I was in. I was constantly air was being breathed into me for 5 days, and my legs were being pumped to keep me going. So I have no conscious memory, but the only memory I do have is I do have vivid memory of waking up and saying, "Can I please go home? I swear I'm okay. I'm okay. Let me go home. My kids." That's the only memory I have. But I think what was happening was when I was coming to do that, I think they were kind of, you know, knocking me out with perhaps narcotics to keep me calm, because I'm assuming that I was trying to leave.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Wow. Wow, what an experience. And so when did the because I understand, like I've had experiences myself where I understood it at some level in the beginning, and then over time I received more understanding of what I experienced. And so did you remember having this where you were sitting up but your body was still laying in bed? How, when did that memory kind of come online for you or come back for you?
That's been there the whole time.
Okay, so you remembered that from the beginning.
That I that's the only experience I have as how the whole thing happened. I don't have any other. I thought that's what really happened.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Didn't question it because it was nothing really out of ordinary besides seeing my body and the figures around me, and then seeing my kids in the candle. Those things stood out. I was like, that's weird, because I questioned it, but it never made sense. So when I first came out, I tried to kind of talk about it, but I was immediately told, oh, that's all the drugs and the medication you were on. They gave you a lot of drugs.
Mm. So it
But
was, but it was so real to you that you knew it was more than that.
oh, it's still, you it's, I don't know how to explain it. If you, like, for example, the first time you and I met, you don't have to try to remember it. You will never forget it, because the feeling was so strong that every time you see me, you will both remember, oh, remember the first time we met? Remember? Yeah. I just like loved you, right? Same thing with that experience. I can't remember it and I can't forget it. It's an experience. So when I talk about it, that happened. Just
Yeah.
like when I met you and I heard you speak, that happened. That happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So beautiful. It's so interesting because as you speak of this, I just feel so much emotion coming up. There's just so much beautiful energy around this. It's just very, very beautiful. So you tried to explain it to people, but it sounds like you didn't really have someone to bounce this off of or share this with or process this or anything. So where did you go from there?
Oh my God. I went crazy. Look,
I get that.
I went crazy because the thing is I didn't have a question to ask.
Mm,
Do you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't say, did I die? What happened to me? Because I didn't die. I was just, I woke up and I saw that and I saw that. I thought it was interesting, but I moved on it. But the struggles were, so here's what I've discovered. A few things happened. The fact that I saw myself complete clear in spirit is an indication that when I am in, like, because you know how we have our regular life 3D, and then we have human moments, 3D moments. But then when we sit in silence, when we sit in prayer, when we sit in meditation, when we sit with our own soul, when we sit in that space, in that quiet, private space, we tap into a complete different space, right?
yes.
When I do that, I become spirit.
Hmm.
And for me, that's this, because I've seen it. It doesn't take hours or long meditation. It's almost like I can be spirit form in a split second, like boom, like it's there. Because it's there. It's there. It is, you know? And so in life, it's almost like my ability to be in spirit and to see and feel things through my own clarity. Because when I'm separate from my own physical body, when I'm separate from Leena's head Leena's emotions and Leena's physical body. When I am me in spirit, I'm clear. I'm a clear vessel, clear channel, and I'm able to feel and see things on another level. Like me being able to sense and feel my children, me being able to sense and feel prayers, me being able to look upon another human with love and gratitude and see the light within them. Like these were gifts that were given to me on that moment. But it has taken time to process it, because like you said, when I came out, there was no questions for me to ask. I didn't know. All I knew is I was looking at people and through my clarity, seeing more than what they wanted being seen, you know?
Mm, yeah.
Full
Yeah, and
sense.
when you at the beginning when you were talking about, like, you didn't really have any spiritual training per se, like, so was your, um because I'm not as familiar with with the practices of Islam, and so it sounds like was that more like ritualistic, or like these are the practices we do, but not like connected to, I don't know, just I don't know what I'm asking.
Yes. So I think what you're wanting to know is how much spirituality is within the teachings of Islam, right?
Yeah, well, and how much
How
yeah,
much
how
how
much
much
you were able to, yeah.
I had to spirituality and the spirit realm and all that. Zero, zero.
Okay. Okay.
There's a branch of Islam called Sufism, and
Uh-huh.
that, as we all know, the famous, infamous Rumi poet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if so I believe I'm correct in saying this, but I'm sure I'm gonna get all kinds of reactions. But from what I believe, Rumi was from areas in Afghanistan, from the country I'm at, and he went into Persia and he became a poet and he became worldwide. And he's till this day, we see Rumi poems and quotes all over
Yes.
every form of social media, right?
Yes.
Become
Uh-huh.
spiritual lingo at this point. But it was never really, it was part of my life. I was fascinated by it, but I never understood it, but I knew it.
Okay.
So that was the
You
extent.
never really connected to any of that part of it, is what you're.
I connected to Sufism, spirituality, and Rumi at a very, very young age. But it was not, it was kind of like a extra hobby that everybody was thought was like, it's just poetry. Stupid.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was it. So in Islam does not really talk much about spirituality. In fact, in Islam, all the prayers are in Arabic, and I don't speak Arabic. So
Okay.
I have no idea really.
Yeah. Yeah. There's probably not a lot of need for Arabic in Las Vegas.
No, not, I
Not a
just
lot of opportunity to practice.
no. So my understanding of the world was from the lens of um, being born and raised in Islam, but because of my spiritual connection and openness, because of my NDE at birth, I've really had a lot of questions. And so I never really, I don't want to use the word. What is the word I want to use? I was not a big fan of Islam growing up. I wasn't. I had too many questions um, that felt unanswered. So and there is no room for spirituality and there was no other religion. So I kind of lived in my space of the poetry that Rumi spoke about, the love that Rumi would speak about. And then here's another thing. It's so funny because now hindsight, I make sense, but I grew up listening to a lot of Hindi music,
Hmm.
Hollywood movies and music, and I learned the language from the music and from the poetry.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't know how, but I understand poetry and spiritual text on a different level. And
Wow.
then now that I understand between my NDE and my STE, it makes sense. but
Yeah.
But so I was very confused because I was very much in the realm of love, unconditional love, because of the music and the poetry, what I was reading. But there was nothing about a foundational understanding about spirituality, religion, God, or anything. I was just
Okay.
in love.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So you mentioned you had an NDE as an infant, as a newborn, and then you've mentioned this spiritually transformative experience. What makes the next best sense to go? Which direction do you want to go? Do you want to talk about the spiritually transformative experience? It sounds like that kind of opened your eyes to more understanding of what was happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the the childhood experience was very simple. It was really, I had an epic birth, and I had an experience which I do not remember, but I grew up with all the sensitivities and after effects of childhood NDE, as you understand with PMH Atwaters and all the study and research. So that made sense on that level. But the STE that happened after my near death in 2011, so 3 years after that, so something very interesting happened after I had an NDE in 2014. I was so spiritually open, and I didn't understand that. I didn't understand the concept, and I didn't know that that's what it was. But I was so this is going to sound strange, but I was able to see spirit, and I was able to see feel things beyond my conscious mind of understanding. So it didn't make a lot of sense, but I processed it. I after in 2015, I convinced my husband and my family to move from California to Houston, Texas,
Mm.
where I spent like 4 years deep diving and just trying to figure what's going on with me, because my mind was on like steroids. I don't know how to explain it in any other words, but um
You
there's
went from
this
black and white to Technicolor.
on steroids on high speed. So my life
Yeah.
was very interesting. So there was this very high speed evolution happening to me, and I was having all these spiritual insights and gifts and spiritual experiences. But on my human side, on the life side, my life kept falling apart.
Wow.
Even though the more experiences I had, the more I was falling apart,
Mm.
because I was going from entering pure states of bliss from my experiences. I would walk and go into meditation, and I would just it's hard to explain, Julie, but I would get into these states of euphoria. Like I would be buzzing with high frequency, and I couldn't understand what it was. And I would be so consumed with love. I would see trees, animals, people walking by me. It would just have these effects on me. But at the same time, I was feeling people's pain to a degree, which at the time I didn't realize that that's what was happening. That
Mm.
I thought all these pains and dysfunctions that I was picking up from people around me in the world, going out, being taught, that I thought those were mine. And I was like, it doesn't make sense. How can I have this problem? It's gone today, have this tomorrow? Like it took me a while to figure out what was happening. Is that I was, I had to learn to separate myself. And I think that's what happened within those 4 years. I spent so much time alone to where I understood where I was energetically, and beyond physically, but energetically, who I am, what I am in that space.
Yeah.
And so, which has pretty much brought me to where I am today, doing what I do. But yeah, this it left this portal open, and I've been having incredible experiences. Um,
So tell me a little bit of, like, what happened in your spiritually transformative experience. You said this was 3 years after the NDE?
Yeah, so sorry. Okay. Let me tell you a little bit about that one. Um, so 3 years later, I was living in Houston and I went on vacation this time the other way back to California to visit family. And on that trip, now up until this day, it's been 3 years since my near-death experience. And to this day, I still have absolutely zero clue of what has happened to me about NDE, ST, none of those things.
You didn't
No,
have the terminology for it,
nothing.
yeah. You knew what had happened to you, but you just didn't have
Yeah,
terminology
but I
for it.
didn't know. So when I went, my cousins took me, they said, let's go do a float tank. Have you heard of a float tank?
Oh, uh-huh, yes, yes. But go ahead and explain it briefly, yeah. So
So float tanks are these places that you can go to. They're all over and they're pretty hip in Southern California, Las Vegas. But it's like any other place where you go and they have these containers where they have water at your body temperature. And it's a sensory deprivation tank essentially. And what you do is you meditate in there and you lay in there. They put like lots of Epsom salt in the water, so it changes the dynamic and the chemistry of the water to where you don't sink, but you float on water. And what happens is because it's so pitch black and completely sealed and it's quiet, you go into a very deep meditation. So what happened for me is this was my first time experiencing it. When I went there and I had this experience, um, oh my God, I was transported to the universe. Like,
wow.
you know, I had no idea what I was getting into. But essentially, Julie, what happened was, here I go. I lay down in this room, in which, by the way, the place I went to was so weird. It was so weird. Scared me so bad because I don't know how to swim. So I'm
Oh,
laying dark in water, pitch black. I I I've never done any of these things. I don't do these things. But I went and did this. I was so scared that I took a video. I have a 20-second video that I made before I walked in because I was so scared. I was like, in case something happens. At
oh,
least
wow.
I don't know, but it was that scary. But I walked in and I went through the process. I did the thing. And I want to say that probably within a minute or so, I was transported. And what happened was, this sounds crazy, Julie, but I have to tell you because as I laid there in pitch black, I opened my eyes and I looked and I saw nothing. I lifted my hand in front of me and saw nothing. I was like, huh, this is pretty black. It's pretty dark in here, pitch black. But something extraordinary happened. I was able to see again.
Oh,
I opened my eyes and I looked up and I saw this beautiful ribbon of white air smoke. You know, like the smoke at the end of a cigarette, that just this beautiful ribbons. I love that. I don't know, but that beautiful smoke air came and I just looked at it and it just came. So I was looking with some eyes. I don't know because these eyes were whether open or closed, it was pitch black, but I could clearly see that this beautiful stream of pearly white, just this coming in and going into my nose, and I'm breathing it. And as I breathe it in, it does something to me. Now it's like I hear this voice again. It's saying, Leena, just breathe, relax, take a deep breath. And I was having a hard time relaxing because I was so fidgety. So this voice told me to relax and just breathe, just relax, breathe. And then it started talking to me. And it said, so I had a hard time with my neck in the water because my neck was hurting. I felt like my neck was being pushed down in the water and I couldn't understand it. So it was pain and pressure right at the back of my neck. And when this voice started talking, it said, okay, those are your chakras.
mm.
And it pointed. So I'm laying in the things, but I'm also watching myself lay in the water. And it's telling me, so as I'm laying there, it's showing me my chakras. And Julie, I literally at that moment, I say to myself, what are chakras?
Mm.
Because I'd never heard the word. I
Wow.
didn't know what it was. So the voice tells me those are your chakras. And it tells me that this, the one, now I know the one in my stomach, my solar plex, the third one, that's your powerhouse. That's what it told me. And then it told me that my neck chakra was also my chakra that needed balancing. So, which made sense. And then it said that once I learn what these chakras are, and once I learn how they are connected to and correlated to my life, that I'll be able to heal my life. I had no idea what that meant, but that's what was told to me then.
Wow.
Naturally, when I came out, I looked up chakras and I read books on it and I understood it. And now I understand exactly what it means. And in fact, it's in the work that I do as well now. But this experience left me completely like, amazed, because what happened after that was, after I was introduced to my chakras and explained to me, it was almost like a different scene, but this time I was going through a tunnel,
Mm.
which is interesting because afterwards I was very, when I heard about, let me go back. Later on, many years later, when I learned about NDEs and stuff, I was like, that's strange, because every element of the tunnel in an NDE for me happened in my STE, not in my NDE.
Wow.
So, you know how I came back in my NDE into my body and I have no memory of it? It's almost
Yes.
like that that was open. It was almost like when 3 years later, when I had when I was back in that same kind of unconscious space where I was separated in that deprivation tank, I was able to go back in and finish my NDE and have my STE, because it literally has every element of, I lay down in complete dark pitch black sensory deprivation. There was no Leena, there was no consciousness, and I was transported. And the language that was given to me, I'd never heard it. The tunnel that I went through a tunnel. And to describe the tunnel to you is very fascinating, because I found myself moving inside the tunnel at a very fast speed. I could see that I was sitting inside the tunnel, inside of a vehicle, large vehicle, moving at a very fast pace forward, like, like the way a train moves. So
Uh-huh.
it was this, I was inside this vehicle, but as I'm looking, I'm seeing that the vehicle keeps switching forms. It goes from being a vehicle to a like a big ship boat kind of a thing, and into like an airplane, and then kind of like a bird.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but as I'm coming out, I'm also inside of all of these things, because I'm like in the front, like in the vehicle, and I'm like, okay, I'm going fast, I'm in the vehicle, and I'm this and this and this, right? But I'm also seeing myself being inside the vehicles and the different things, moving through it. And then I am also having an awareness of being up in the sky and looking down at the mountain, and the tunnel that I'm going through is located at the side of this mountain.
Mm.
So it's very interesting, because as I'm in so I have these three separate perspectives and views, right? Outside view, inside the tunnel view, and then inside the actual vehicle of the tunnel. So as I'm going through, it's changing forms. But what happens is that I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And as I'm getting closer to it, what happens is as I come out, what comes out of the tunnel and into the light is just me. Everything else has fallen off.
Mm.
So whatever, all the tools you want to call them, I don't know,
Yeah.
that I used to move through, when I came out as me, as and when I came out at this beautiful side of these three mountain cliffs. And I came out, and when I came out, I didn't fall. I was just there.
Mm.
like I came out into the light where the space was, and I was the space that everything was contained in. So I could see these beautiful mountains and beautiful colors and beautiful, like I want to say flocks of birds, like patches, but in a distance, just beautiful imagery. And I just I looked at it and it was like heaven on earth.
Yeah.
Heaven on earth. And I was just looking into it, looking at it and admiring it. But I don't know how much time you have, Julia. I mean, I have many, many experiences that I can speak on, but
Well, so you came out of this tunnel and you're seeing this beautiful scenery. Was that the end of that experience, or did something else happen when you were in this scenery?
so it's interesting because different things did happen, but it's not like a continuum of a situation and you see it through and then it goes to the next logical thing. It's like you see this and then this happens and then this. It's kind of like, I went from being, you know, um, watching my body in the float tank to going through the tunnel and then coming out being that. So other things did happen. I was shown more stuff. There was more revealed. I just didn't know how much time you had and if you want me to continue to talk because it could.
Yes, if you have time, we would love to hear a little more about, did you learn something there? Did you have interactions with people? What happened in that space? We can't leave them on the sides of a cliff.
I know that'd be horrible to do. Um, um, it's interesting because I've had so many experiences and so many. I could probably talk forever, so I have to, learn to be respectful of
I understand that.
that your listeners would want to listen to. But the experience really was profound, to say, I mean, if any other word I can use. Um, because after that, at some point, I found myself in this next image of being out in outer space
Mm,
and basically looking out and seeing the earth in front of me as like
mm,
size like of a basketball. So distance wise, I could see that size. So as I'm looking out, I'm in the space and it's my awareness that's looking at, and I'm looking at the earth. And when I look at the earth, Julie, something incredible happens, magical. It's almost like this show gets put on for me. So first, when I look at the earth, above the earth, there's two words written. It says micro and macro
mm,
in very, very bold letters. Micro, macro, and
mm.
underneath that. And I had this moment of, okay, micro, macro. I knew that I knew the words, but I knew that I had known it, but I didn't know it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
It was like a foreign word to me. I knew I went to school, but that was the extent of what I remember from it.
yeah.
So I'm looking at that. Now all of a sudden, underneath it, where the earth is, it becomes kind of like a screen. And from what I see at the front of the earth, if you've seen those necklaces where they have the tree of life inside
Hmm.
the circle, and you see the branch and it hits on the bottom, and then the tree of life fills up the entire circle. I literally see the earth and I see a full tree, the tree of life.
Mm,
And the entire thing like one big full tree. And as I'm looking at it, what's shown to me, and this is what I understood like later on, but I saw the micro and macro of a tree, meaning I saw the tree in its macro form, which is a full tree with fruits, leaves, branches, a nice thick, what is it called?
trunk. Yeah.
Yes. So macro, right? That's the epitome of a fully developed tree. And then I saw the micro of it in a seed from the apple, like the seed of the fruit. So then I saw the seed become the macro tree itself, because the one seed can become a whole nother tree and create more. So I guess what the universe was trying to show me was the micro and macro of life, because it showed it to me from the tree, full tree, to the seed of a tree that becomes a tree. And it, after that, it kind of went through and it just showed me different things, and humans and people and animals and trees and plants, and it showed me the micro and macro of things. But it was at such a, it was at such a speed
Yeah.
that I don't have a conscious, like I didn't understand, I didn't see anything with my conscious eyes, with my conscious mind. So, but with that part of me, I was able to understand the micro and macro of everything that was shown to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it was more a instant download versus a linear process of
Yeah.
learning what we would experience here.
Yes, absolutely. And it's so funny because I had that experience and I always wondered, what does that mean? Well, when after I came back from that experience, um, everything that was downloaded to me there was also given to me here
Mm,
for me to understand with my conscious mind, with my conscious eyes, and with my conscious ears. So what that means is, when I came back in that whole time, even though Leena, my conscious mind, even though I was going frantic and going batshit, sorry, crazy. Sorry, just I was losing my mind because I couldn't make sense of these two versions of me, right?
yeah.
Um, but the universe always provided me with everything I needed to know, to learn, understand, digest, and integrate, and now share
Yeah.
what all that means and what all that is and how that works. So as I've been back, and part of the processing has been obviously to understand me, the way I think, the way I feel. Why do I feel this way? Why do I think this way? How does this work? All that led me to understanding and researching all kinds of things, all kinds of modalities. I learned how to meditate. I learned what chakras were. I learned all these things. And in that process, I found something very, very interesting to me, that spoke to my soul, that speaks to me, that makes sense to me. And that was something in very particular. It's in the studies of bioacoustic biology. So basically, it's in the studies of the sound and frequencies, particularly of the human voice. So I was blessed. I was blessed to meet the right people and the right teachings to understand, you know, what all that means and how that's translated here for us here in this world. So now I use my spiritual sensitivities, my gifts, my understanding, and the wisdom that I'm gathering from my experiences. Because I think it's one thing to have an experience and come back and say, oh, this happened to me and I saw this and I saw that. Well, that's all great and dandy, but what does it mean? How does it translate now? How do I use it
Mhm.
now? What good is it to me and what good is it to you? How can I make things better around me? Like my only goal in life is to feel good and to make everybody and everything around me feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Priorities change so drastically, but
Yeah. So you have this vision and this experience, and then you just find yourself back in your body, in this tank, um and now you have all these sensitivities, these abilities that have opened up. Like you said, you've opened a portal. It's been kind of open your whole life, but it's just more and more openness. And I think it's fascinating. One of the things that there's so many things that I find fascinating about your experiences and just you yourself. And but one thing that's super fascinating to me is the fact that you learned things in these experiences like you'd never heard of chakras before. And then to be introduced to that in
Yeah.
this spiritual context, it brings so much validity to your experience. I'm sure personally for you, that was so validating to go, okay, if I look this up, am I going to find anything? Like, am I making all this up or is this for, I mean, what? But I think that must have been so validating for you to find this information in your world to validate your experiences, but and also to help you to integrate your experiences. Would that would that be correct, or is that,
I got full body goosebumps as you said that because it's so right on point. It is, it's true. Um, yeah, the sensitivities and all the stuff, you know, to learn to be in it, I guess. I guess to learn to be in the world and or of the world and not in the world or something like that. But
yeah,
really
to be in
to
the
be
world but
able.
not of the world? Yes, yes.
Yes, thank you. It's, you know, so it's interesting because it comes with its challenges, but you know, it comes full circle because you eventually figure it out. You
Mhm.
eventually integrate. And there's when you spend enough time by yourself and you meditate and you connect to your higher self, all that's true. None of that is hocus pocus. None of that is anything. I mean, those things are for real. When you sit down and you align and you do these things, wow, the universe opens up and talks to us and shares with us and guides us and gives us. It has been proven to me over and over again. And every time I do sit and every time I go, like this to me is, let me tell you why I share, Julie. Because for me, it's vulnerable to sit and share and, you know, be asked questions where you're going to have to say something about your personal life that, you know, there's a lot of vulnerability in it, you know,
Yes, I
but
understand
I
that.
do it. Yeah, but I do it because the thing is I share a story that transports me into a space or state of being that I'm enjoying bliss. So it's like it's a no-brainer. It's like, yeah, let's go to Disneyland. You know, it's yeah, you know, and then not only that, but you know, there's a sense of excitement and there's a sense of getting ready to, you know, like I meditate before I speak. I tune out the world and I come into my own space and I do a ritual. And when I share, I'm literally sharing the energies of that space. So I come full circle and I've done it enough to where I've healed in ways that are extraordinary and miraculous. And I've integrated so much of my experience that I know the effects I have. I know the effects this conversation has. And I know the energy that we're sharing right now between you and I, how powerful it is for people who are going to listen to it. It's,
Yeah.
you know, it's literally, it's that beautiful as truth.
Well, and that's what I love, and I so appreciate about you being willing to share and everyone else that is willing to share is that we can see how unique everyone's experiences are and yet how universal they are, and it helps us to understand our own experiences, and that's why these conversations are so important to me. Will
Yeah.
you share a little bit about what work you do now? You've mentioned it you've mentioned a few times the work that you do now. Will you share what you do now, so and how people can connect with you? And then I have another question for you before I let you go.
Oh yes, absolutely. Thank you. So the work that I do is really so even though I'm very much spiritually inclined and I'm in that spiritual realm, I'm also very much of a skeptic and I'm also very much of a science-based person. So I kind of do both. And I approach this the human life, this human journey, this experience as a miraculous gift regardless. And I see it as all of us having that same experience in different levels. And I also see it as a mind, body, and soul connection. And I think that we are all doing the best we can, and that nobody's perfect, and that we all need either space for mental issues, emotional issues, and physical issues. We all don't need all of them, you know. So I believe in meeting people where they are. Not everybody has the same problem, but all problems are universal. But finding out where every individual is, not, you know, some people need to start with mental stuff, you know, get that mental to calm down to where we can affect and trigger the emotions, and then the physical healing. For some people, we need to manage the emotions, and then so that we can have a more of a better mental process to be able to, you know, create a better decisions, to have a better physical space, right? Or sometimes our physical body either has an issue that has been prolonged, or an accident, or an illness, or something just came on, and the physical body is in such distress that you can't really have a mental or emotional stability because the body needs attention. So I look at the approach is, I don't have a one approach fit all solution for anybody and everybody. I believe in meeting people where they are, and, you know, creating that space for them to realize what they need. And then from that space, I I help energetically, and also I use my tools here. I've gathered many wonderful tools to be able to help people. One of my favorite tools has been in the study and research of bioacoustic biology, which basically is um, the study of the structures of the sound of your voice. So basically looking at it backwards, the sound of your voice, in the sound of your voice, I can detect the state of your mental, emotional, and physical well-being. Meaning, if you have imbalances in the body, it shows up in your voice. If you have emotional, like your emotions come out in your voice. Like when you're happy, you sound different. When you're sad, you sound different. When your arm hurts, you sound different. When your arm doesn't hurt, you sound different. So looking at the body from the voice and seeing where the issues are, you can get to the root cause of a lot of issues if you can find out where the imbalance is. So I approach it that way. First, we figure out where, you know, you are. Is it mental, emotional, physical? And based on that, we go into a deep dive and look at the root cause of the imbalances, you know.
Yeah. So where can people find more about what you do or how to contact you?
So my website is MBS Alignment Center, which if you like, I can share a link. And then also, you know, beyond this, I think one of the best healing things that I provide is the work that I do with the IONS Las Vegas in Nevada. As you said earlier, how we met through IONS organization. Well, I'm a branch here in Las Vegas, and I pretty much do the same thing. Is I hold space and I provide education and resources for experiencers and educators and medical professional and families, because as you know, when we have experiences, we affect everybody. You know,
Hmm.
everybody kind of needs to know why we're crazy and why how we are, because it really is. Like any other condition, I think this condition also deserves to be recognized and you know, talked about. So
Yeah.
I have space there as well.
Awesome. And okay, so my last question for you, and please share anything else that we haven't touched on that you'd like to share. What are some of the spiritual practices? I know you've mentioned meditation. Are there some spiritual practices that you personally have found helpful to you that you use on a daily or, you know, weekly basis that you'd like to share with us?
Oh, um, yeah. So I'm a busy mom. I've got 3 kids. I got 2 teenagers and a 10-year-old, so I'm very busy. And to say meditation, I do schedule meditation like for when I do certain days during the week when I work and stuff. But I am the type of person that's more like I I consider meditation when I'm doing something I enjoy. So I don't always have time to meditate. So I have found ways to be in a meditative state when I do certain things. So I
Oh,
can approach it that way. When
amazing.
I'm able to sit down and meditate, I meditate. So I do a couple of different things. I have part of my practice. I have a vibroacoustic bed, so it's unfair. I have an unfair advantage, but I do sometimes do meditation on my vibroacoustic bed, which is bed with made with water bed with frequencies, and I do a frequency meditation. But honestly, I meditate when I walk, when I'm out in nature, when I listen to music. I listen to music when I feel like things are getting, like when I'm getting whatever. I put on my headphones and I listen to music. And I'm very, 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 people call me picky, which I know can be something, but I say I'm very selective with what I allow in my space. I'm selective with what I listen to. I'm selective with what the music I listen to. I'm selective with the movies I watch. I'm selective with the books I read. I'm selective with the people I communicate with or spend time with. I'm selective with all these things. And I always try to be mindful about what I'm doing, where I'm at, and how I'm spending my time. So um, if I need to put myself in a mental space, I'll put on my headphones, listen to music or a really, really good book and do tasks that I don't enjoy. Or that's how I meditate. So I find that balance.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you so much for being here today, Leena. It's such a pleasure to talk to you and hear more about your story, because I certainly learned things about your story that I wasn't familiar with before. So I really
Oh,
appreciate you sharing that with us.
and I appreciate you inviting me and having this platform and, you know, educating and sharing and teaching people about this and, allowing us to speak and share. It's a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you.